Hey everybody, thank you for downloading or streaming this presentation. My name is Taylor Stewart and I am the Alabama Historic Rehabilitation Tax Credit Program Coordinator. My contact information is there at the bottom of the screen. My phone number is 334-230-2643. And my email address is taylor.stewart@ahc.alabama.gov. The Alabama Historic Rehabilitation Tax Credit Program is a 25% income tax credit on qualified rehabilitation expenses, or QREs as we call them. This credit is meant to help defray the cost of rehabilitating historic properties while also ensuring that these properties are preserved according to the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. This program is meant for owners of residential or commercial historic properties, and it has rules tailored not only to assist in keeping the credits distributed across residential and commercial buildings, but also to ensure that these credits are given to both rural and urban communities. From 2018 through 2022, the Commission will have $20 million in tax credits to award to projects each year. The caps for these are $5 million in tax credits for commercial projects and $50,000 for residential projects. The Alabama Historical Commission reviews all the applications in our office first to ensure completeness and general qualifications for the program, and then all qualifying projects are then presented to the Historic Tax Credit Evaluating Committee. The Historic Tax Credit Evaluating Committee is made up of the appointed heads of several government agencies as well as 4 legislators, and we'll get into who all of these people are later and what they're going to be looking at, but they are who determines the order and rank of qualifying projects based on criteria that we're going to talk about, and they score the projects based on these criteria questions, and then the Commission reserves credits for those projects based on that ranking. There are several differences between the old program and the new program, but one of the bigger ones is that this tax credit is refundable, and what that means is if your state income tax liability is less than what your tax credit is, you will get a check from the state of Alabama for the difference. There is no carry forward with this program, however, so it is a 1 year. You take the tax credit in the year the building is placed into service, and you get a refund for the difference, and then it's gone. So how do you decide if you're eligible for this program? So your property must be at least 60 years old, and then it must either be listed in the National Register of Historic Places individually or as a contributing resource in a district, or it must be determined eligible to be on the National Register individually or in a district by our office. Now, in order to find out if you are eligible, you fill out our determination of eligibility form, and that form is free. There is an application fee associated with parts A and B of the application, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but the determination of eligibility form is totally free. You fill that out, send it to our office, and we will have a meeting within the office to determine if we think your property is eligible for the National Register. You do not have to follow through with getting this property on the National Register if we determine it eligible for the state program. I know the federal program is a little bit different, but for the state, you do not actually have to put your property on the National Register. So part A of the application is just the qualifications of the property. The age, National Register status, the physical description, history and significance, and then current and historic photos and maps of the property. Part B of the application is a little bit more detailed. It includes any work completed before submission, which should be very little. It's basically emergency repairs that are allowed and some soft costs, some surveying fees and things like that. The purchase price and fair market value of the property must be accounted for in Part B. You also include your project estimates, so your start and completion dates, qualified and non-qualified expenses, the tax credit amount you're requesting based on those qualified expenses, and then your before photos, your current and proposed site and floor plans. Part B of the application also includes the criteria questions I was talking about beforehand, and that just kind of covers the economic and community impact a project might have, any other public funding sources, a general summary of the rehabilitation plan, and then you submit Part A and Part B along with half of the application fee all at the same time. So those get sent to our office, and the application fees, now remember, you will submit half of what I am about to say when you turn in Part A and Part B, and then you submit the other half of the application fee when you receive your actual tax credit reservation. So when you are moved off the waiting list, if you're on the waiting list, into the actual active project status. So those application fees are, if your costs are going to be up to $1 million, 1% of your qualified rehab expenses is your fee. If your project costs over $1 million to $10 million, the fee is $15,000. And if the project is over $10 million, the fee is $20,000. So, like we've talked about previously, the Historical Commission reviews those projects based on the Parts A and B and make sure that they qualify for the program. And then we put together binders that we deliver to the committee members. And the main purpose of this committee is to rank all of these qualified projects in order to most effectively utilize these tax credits in a way that positively impacts the state and its economy. So if your project does not meet the qualifications when you first send it in to us, we will contact you and ask you for more information. We don't typically just outright reject a project. If it is incomplete or anything like that, we will call you, send you a letter, ask for some more information, or tell you what needs to change in order for this project to become eligible, if that is possible. The committee receives packets, like I talked about, for each qualifying projects 2 weeks before the committee meeting. These packets are put together in a binder, and they include the cover sheets for Parts A and B of the application, a photograph of the building, and then I pulled the history and significance portion from the Part A application to go onto that cover sheet. And then it also includes all those answers to the criteria questions, so the community and economic impact, local support, and then the brief description of the rehabilitation. Any letters of support you might have, those are not required, but people do like to include a letter from a city council member or a neighbor or a local business, just kind of stating the impact that this project would have on the community. And then they also get scoring sheets to score each project. These are your current committee members. They will change from year to year, I believe. Clyde Chambliss is our current chair of the committee. He is a state senator. Bobby Singleton is also a state senator. Rod Scott and Victor Gaston are our House representatives on the committee. And then our vice chair is Michelle Nix, and she is the director of the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs. We also have the director of the Alabama Historical Commission, Lisa Jones. Kenneth Boswell, the Alabama Department of Economic and Community Affairs director. The state finance director, the acting state finance director, Kelly Butler. Secretary of Commerce Greg Canfield, and Vernon Barnett, the Commissioner of Revenue, who sit on this committee and review these projects. Now, the evaluation committee determines which projects receive these tax credits based on a scoring system with several factors. It's essentially the criteria questions. You will notice if you look at Part B of the application, these perfectly match up to those questions, and they give numerical scores for each category. If more than one project receives the same numerical score, we hold random drawings to decide the order in the ranked list. And then once $20 million in credits are reserved, projects remain in order on a waiting list based on their committee ranking until tax credits become available, either through rescission of a project's tax credit reservation or when additional credits become available in the next calendar year. We do have project timelines for this program. Projects must spend no less than 20% of the estimated cost of rehabilitation within 18 months of notification of tax credit reservation, and then they must spend an additional 50% within 36 months, and then projects must be completed within 60 months or 5 years of notification of their tax credit reservation. It is on the applicant to notify the Historical Commission of each benchmark met throughout the process. However, we will send a letter a little bit ahead of time reminding projects that that deadline is coming up. And then once a project is completed, Part C of the application must be submitted. Part C of the application is just a certification of the completed work. It's just making sure you carried through and did what you said you're going to do in Part B. It includes your actual project data, so your start and finish dates, your qualified and non-qualified expenses, the actual number of jobs created during the rehabilitation, and then for commercial properties, the approximate number of jobs created post-rehabilitation. It will also include after photos, a cost and expense certification, and a post-rehabilitation appraisal of the property. If you guys have any further questions, if you would like to call and ask some questions about your particular project and see if it is eligible for the program, my phone number is 334-230-2643, and my email address is taylor.stewart, Stewart, @ahc.alabama.gov. Again, my name is Taylor Stewart, and thank you for being with us and listening to our presentations today.